Imagine a man who built an empire with spears and stolen guns, a warlord so cunning and feared that the legendary explorer Henry Morton Stanley called him the African Bonaparte. This isn't a story from ancient Rome or medieval Europe. This is the tale of Mirambo, the Unyamwezi chief who rose from obscurity to challenge Arab sultans and forge a kingdom in the heart of 19th century Africa. His name, Mirambo, meant corpses in his native Tunga, terrifying symbol of his dominance on the battlefield. This is the story of how he earned that name. Our story begins around 1860. A young chief named Imbula Imtelia inherits the small chief Yoyoa, but he has ambitions far beyond its borders. Having learned the art of war from the fearsome Ngoni people, he creates his own army, the Rugaruga Brotherhood of young, loyal warriors, many of them orphans who owed everything to him. Armed with spears, bows, and a few precious firearms from coastal traders, they were a force of nature. His first target was the neighboring territory of Aling. Mirambo's tactics were revolutionary. His Rugaruga would move like ghosts through the bush, avoiding detection until the last possible moment. Then, with a deafening war cry, they would launch a surprise attack. It was brutal, close-quarters combat. The Rugaruga would charge overwhelming defenders, capturing women to forge new alliances and seizing cattle and ivory, the currency of power. Mirambo himself wasn't a distant general. He led the charge, fighting alongside his men. From the ashes of this conquest, a new state was born. Arambo, the land of corpses, with Mirambo as its undisputed king. By 1871, Mirambo's power was undeniable. His expanding empire now sat directly astride the lifeblood of the region, the great caravan route from the coast to Lake Tanganyika. This was the highway for ivory and slaves, controlled by powerful Arab Swahili traders, based in the city of Tabora, and backed by the mighty Sultan of Zanzibar. Mirambo saw his opportunity. He declared a blockade, ambushing caravans, seizing their precious ivory, and even freeing their slaves to disrupt the entire economic system. This was a declaration of war. The Arab traders, furious, launched attacks against him. But Mirambo was ready. His Rugaruga, now thousands strong and ironically armed with guns purchased from the very trade networks he was attacking, were masters of guerrilla warfare. They refused to fight a conventional battle. Instead, they used hit-and-run tactics, luring the Arabs into ambush. In one legendary clash, when their ammunition ran low, Mirambo's warriors melted down their copper bracelets to cast new bullets. They would not be defeated. The Sultan of Zanzibar, enraged by the disruption, sent a massive army of 3,000 professional soldiers, including Baluchi mercenaries armed with modern artillery, but even they couldn't pin Mirambo down. His fighters used their knowledge of the land, striking from the shadows and melting back into the wilderness, wearing down the invaders day by day. The war raged for 4 long years, causing ivory prices to skyrocket across the globe. Finally, in 1875, the Arabs conceded. A deal was struck. Caravans could pass, but only if they paid a tax, a hongo. He had faced down a sultan and won. His control was absolute, and his legend was cemented forever. With the Arab traders humbled, Mirambo turned his gaze north, towards the Great Lake Victoria. Between 1876 and 1878, he launched a series of campaigns to secure the trade routes to the powerful Baganda Kingdom. This wasn't about one single, decisive battle. It was a relentless storm of raids. East Rugaruga, now organized into disciplined, age-graded regiments. Moved with terrifying speed, scouts would identify a village's weak points, and then the attack would come swift. Shocking charge. A volley of gunfire would break the enemy's nerve, followed by a brutal melee with spears and curved shotel swords. Mirambo was a master of strategy, often dividing his forces into multiple columns to encircle and overwhelm smaller chiefdoms one by one. Defeated warriors weren't just eliminated, they were often absorbed into his own army, making it stronger with every victory. By 1878, he had choked off his rivals' access to the northern trade and brought a vast territory under his influence, cementing Mirambo's status as the dominant regional power. Having secured the north and east, Mirambo's ambition then drove him west, toward the shimmering waters of Lake Tanganyika. Between 1879 and 1881, he sought to dominate the final piece of the trading puzzle. His Ruga, now a formidable force of nearly 10,000 men, pushed into new territories. They advanced through dense forests and rugged hills, using their tried-and-true guerrilla methods. They would ambush local forces like the Mahambur people and compel them into alliances. Mirambo's tactics grew even more sophisticated. He would use feigned retreats, pretending to flee in order to lure his enemies into carefully prepared traps, only to turn and unleash a devastating counter. After each victory, he would establish military outposts, garrisons of Ruga, who would enforce his rule and collect tribute. He was building not just an army, but an administration. By 1881, he had achieved his goal. Mirambo's influence stretched to the shores of the Great Lake, giving him control over the western trade routes. His empire was at its zenith, a vast kingdom built by the strategic genius and ruthless determination of one man. But empires, no matter how powerful, are fragile. In 1884, in what would be his final campaign, Mirambo made a fatal miscalculation. He invaded the kingdom of Burundi to the east, seeking to exploit a local power struggle. His initial attacks, relying on surprise, were successful. But the warriors of Burundi were fighting on their home turf. Aided by their own Ngoni allies, they met Mirambo's forces in open battle. For one of the first times, the Ruga's charge was met and broken. The Burundian countercharge, fueled by knowledge of the terrain and a desperate will to defend their homes, overwhelmed Mirambo's invaders. It was a stunning defeat. At the same time, back in his heartland, trouble was brewing. A new alliance of his old Arab enemies and a rival chief attacked Mirambo. But Mirambo was no longer the invincible warrior who led from the front. A mysterious illness had taken hold of him, weakening his body. He was forced to send his deputy to lead the army, which also suffered defeat. The twin losses were a devastating blow. The African Bonaparte, the man who had seemed unbeatable, was finally faltering. On December 2nd, 1884, Mirambo died. The official cause was a throat disease. But Unyamwezi tradition whispers a darker end, that an ailing ruler, no longer fit to lead, was ritually struck. With his death, the unifying force of his empire was gone. Mirambo, the kingdom built on charisma and conquest, quickly fractured and faded into history. A powerful but fleeting testament to one of Africa's greatest war. Thank you so much for watching. If you found the story of Mirambo as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more epic tales from history. See you next time.